School's out and it's summertime 2026. But I want to take you back to a different summer. The good old days, 1986. How about that summer? Let's go. Tony's Topics, like and subscribe. Hey, do you remember the 1980s or 1990s or the 2000s, 2010s, the summers? But let's go back to 1986. When I was a kid in the 80s and tail end, I was a teenager. The summers just hit different back then. I'm sorry, but they just did. I mean, when we left school, whatever grade we're in the 1980s, it was it. It was total freedom for most people, you know. And I mean, like, today there's, you know, camps and more camps and enrichment and camps and play dates and, you know, parents just helicopter parents and overschedule, but, you know, that's another show. But back in the 1980s, when you got out of school at about June 25th, you were gone, son, until September 5th, 6th, 7th. And I remember just being, boom, gone. I mean, on my bicycle and gone from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. Streetlights came on, and it was just, you know, my parents, like you hear in the good old days and videos and movies, like, be home when the streetlights come on. That was for real. So, you know, I might stop in the house to get a drink and have a sandwich and then boom, back out. My parents, especially my parents, you know, I'll give them credit. They were more shepherds and less helicopter parents. So they were just trust that we were gone. No pagers, no cell phones, no apps, no internet, no fax machines, no beepers. I mean, we had a rotary phone. You know what that is, kids? No answering machine. 5 channels on the television. No cable TV, by the way. Video games were something you had to get out of the house to play. Get out of the house. You know, kids today, I feel bad for them. They're kind of stuck in the house. I mean, it's hard to want to get out when you can connect with your friends with social media. But back in the 80s, in the summer, you were gone. The summertime was a time of just absolute freedom. I'd be on that bicycle or walking with my friends. Where we lived in Jersey was close to the George Washington Bridge, so we had the best of both worlds. You know, we were able to go play in fields and in the woods and the creeks by the lakes. We can go fishing, we can go whatever we wanted to do, or we can head downtown and have ice cream and hit the streets, kind of, so to speak, you know. We weren't in gangs, but we were street kids, at least in my area. We didn't have a lot of money, but we had a lot of time. So, and our parents were just like, hey, just be back home before it gets dark. See ya. And we were gone. I would be riding my bicycle with my friends or by myself into different counties. At 10 years old, I was riding a bicycle into different counties. My parents didn't know where I was. And that was the 80s. It wasn't just me. I mean, just come home before it gets dark. You know, you got a problem, you got to figure it out on your own. There's no cell phone. There was barely any payphones anywhere. You know, summertime was the time of, in the 80s, of the blockbuster movies. Remember that? Like E.T., Return of the Jedi, you know, Ferris Bueller's Day Off. I mean, Rockies, all that stuff. I mean, you lined up outside a theater. You know what I'm saying? Video game places. You had to go into a place to play a video game. You know, you would stay up late. You had 5 stations to watch, you know, but you would stay up late, sleep late, do what you want. Absolute freedom. That was the summer of the 1980s, the summer of 1986. All the 80s in general, but it was a different time, a different place, and it was special. It was hopping on a bus and getting lost. Oops, wrong bus. You got to navigate that. You're 11 years old, 12 years old. You know, it was definitely a sense of freedom with a little sprinkle of danger, so to speak. And not danger in a death way, but danger in a, hey, like, yeah, getting bumps and bruises, climbing trees, jumping off of walls, climbing roofs, like hanging out at the creek, you know, all those things. Having your first crush where you would meet different people from different towns and, you know, groups of guys and girls just going out to McDonald's or the movies, seeing fireworks on 4th of July and not having a lot of money. I know in my family, we were piss poor. So I couldn't wait to get a summer job. That was like better than a Hawaiian vacation because I had the freedom and now I had an ability to get a job. And one of my first jobs was working at Burger King, 1987, 1988. Before that, I worked as a waiter at a bingo hall in the 80s, making $11 in 4 hours, something like that. But taking that money and going to the local ice cream shop and, being able to say, I can go to the movies this week or whatever, playing video games. In the video, you had to go to a video parlor, a place to go play video games. And it was just, social media was actually getting out of the house to meet people and see who's out, hanging out in the street corner, cruising, getting in your car. What did you do in the 1980s, 1990s, 2000s? How did you spend your summers? We'd jump in a car and cruise up and down the main strip and see who was out. That was the 1980s. The smell of the 80s, the hairspray, the Parliament cigarettes, the alcohol from the adults. We'll leave it at that. But that sense of just anything is possible, again, most of our parents, at least the people I hung around with, we just did what the hell we wanted, and discover new things, be bored. I remember staring up at the clouds for hours on end in the 1980s on a summer night, out of school with nothing to do, just bored out of my mind. When was the last time we were bored? When the hell that happened, right? Nobody's bored nowadays. Everyone's got the iPad in front of their face. And adults too. Yours truly, I'm guilty. When was the last time we were bored? But the 1980s gave us boredom, where you can think of new things and come up with games and just, so playing stickball in the street, football in the street, skateboarding in the street, just free to do what you want. The 1980s, that was just a special time and a special place. Before digital, everything was analog or didn't even exist. You had to go out. Did I mention you had to go out of the house? Our parents would punish us if we stayed in the house. My parents used to yell at us and say, get out of the house. Get out of the house. Go play in the street. Literally, my father would say, go play in the street. Today, you get punished if you go out. You have to stay in. More camps, more video games, more. The irony is these parents think their kid is safe upstairs in the room, but they're on their iPad being exposed to God knows what and communicating with the whole world. Where we were out of the house in the 1980s, we weren't communicating with the whole world. We were communicating with our world, our block. We knew our neighbors. People would sit out in the front porch in my neighborhood. Everybody knew each other. We didn't have air conditioning growing up. So we were outside a lot. When we had this front porch and everybody would be out in the front porch, or porches in the different homes. Some homes had AC, but anyways, my point is we were always out, always outside, and that's the summer of the 1980s, just always outside, cruising in cars at the tail end of the 80s, with my older friends and, hanging out in people's porches and backyards and playing, again, stickball, frisbee, football, fishing. I remember fishing in the 1980s in the local lakes in our county here in New Jersey, and just, hitting the McDonald's, and chicken nuggets just were big, and again, those first jobs at Burger King and hearing the radio, Casey Kasem, the top 10, for the summer of 1986, summer of 1987, just those things where you just felt like the world is yours. You're not over scheduled. There is no schedule. It's just freedom. So what were the 80s summers to you, or the 90s summers, or the 70s summers if you're watching the old fart? But what's the summer now to you, For me now, the summers are pretty cool, but something about the 80s that was just special. The movies, the music, the food, just being free as a kid too, I don't think kids get that freedom like we had back in the 80s. What do you think? Tony's Topics. Put in the comment section below. Hey, I got to go enjoy this summer. Bye-bye.